So I totally expected that this day, this conversation would happen at some point. I just did not expect it to happen today. So I am getting ready to go. I'm like ready to walk out the door to go to work. And every morning before I leave, I usually say goodbye to my cowboys. They're around like the 5 to 7 age range. And my youngest cowboy comes to me with a book in hand and he goes, "Mommy, why is he wearing a dress?" And I totally was aware that this book was in our home. I very intentionally brought it into our home because I knew it would eventually spark conversation and I wanted it to be a really like natural way of bringing up this topic. I just, like I said, did not expect the conversation to happen today as I'm like trying to get out the door. So, this is just kind of like some of my raw thoughts about how I might approach this conversation with my sons, and I would love to hear your feedback as well. But to give you an idea as to like what image was in this book, it's a very cute book. It's called How to Get Your Octopus to School, and the book kind of goes through the fact like this, young girl is trying to get her octopus obviously ready to school and all of the challenges that she faces along the way. And the one portion in the book is where he's trying on different school outfits, and you can see him right here, and he is wearing a dress, and he seems quite, happy and content wearing it. Now, to give you some like context as to some of my background with this topic, because I know it is a big, touchy topic for a lot of people, and rightfully so. Like, there's a lot of polarizing viewpoints on this subject, is like I grew up in a very, very conservative home, and my father was actually a pastor to the church that we attended. So even though I grew up in this faith lifestyle, my dad used all of the text and the faith principles as like power and manipulation over my family. And so if I had ever had the chance to even question out of curiosity, not out of rebellion, certain decisions or different lifestyles and stuff like that, it would have not, like the conversation would have been shut down and I would have been punished, if that like gives you any context. So growing up with that experience, I definitely knew that as a mom, I wanted to approach different thoughts, different worldviews than my own values and beliefs as our children aged and as a normal aspect of their life. Like, I wanted them to have a space in our home that it was normal and natural to have these conversations, where it's not a forcing our beliefs into their mentality, where it's a general discussion and a general exploration of, okay, these are the things that me and your dad believe, but what do you think about it? What do you believe? And it be a natural progression and exploration for them. That way they don't get to their life and they're just like, well, what do I believe? Because that was my experience. Like, right, I left my home being so suppressed in this one thought pattern, this one belief system, that it was like, okay, is this what I want to choose for my life? Or is this what has just been given to me because it's been served up on a platter with no other choices? And so this is my only option. Growing up from such a like conservative background, it felt very much as a child that it was like I was sheltered from the world and there could be no exposure to any other thoughts. Like, we would skip certain portions of the movies and we would like not be able to watch certain shows, and just like it was a very like sheltered, like it's almost like being scared of other potential belief systems, that it was a big major threat to what my family may have believed or thought. And it was like, okay, but if this belief is so strong, then you shouldn't be scared of what other people believe. In fact, you should be happy and encourage this dialogue, because it just strengthens your own belief system, or it makes you question your own belief system. So then you can evaluate, okay, do I need to change my beliefs? Do I need to change what I think? Or it will strengthen your beliefs because you're being challenged and going deeper in your faith, right? And so I want to make sure that the culture of our home is set up in a way that gives my children the availability to have those conversations, so that way they don't leave our home when they're going into the public school system, or as they age and grow and they leave our home eventually, that they just feel this huge shock, like, oh my word, someone else doesn't believe the same way I do, because they have lived in a vacuum where everyone thinks the same way, everyone talks the same way, everyone has the same values and principles. Then they're now exposed to completely different ideas and thought patterns after they, leave our home and become adults. Because if anything, as they become adults, I want to make sure that I'm helping them to understand like different logical arguments. So not that they can argue with other people, but that they can understand logically where someone else is coming from in relation to things that they may not believe. And so they can actually have a conversation with someone else that ascribes to a different lifestyle or a different belief system. So yes, I very intentionally decided to keep this book in our home to create conversation starters. And this is also why there are some things like some movies and some different books and different cultural experiences that I very intentionally allow into our home, because they are noticing. And I want them to, if they're eventually, that we will come to a point where like we are ready to spark conversation with our kids. But right now, given the age that they are in, like I think it's very interesting to see what they are perceiving and then why they're questioning it, because it's outside of their normal everyday experience, right? Like that's exciting as a parent. It's really exciting for me to, realize that my 5-year-old will recognize, hey, this is different. This is not what I'm used to what I'm seeing. Like, why is he wearing a dress? Like, I don't wear dresses. Like, so I'm excited as a parent, but I also know that this is really going to stretch me as a mom as I go into these conversations. Given that we had a very short, limited time, as I'm rushing out the door to get to work to kind of have this conversation with my child, I definitely tabled it where I was like, okay, well, we'll talk more about this, later. And unfortunately, through the events of the day, like I said, it just happened this morning, we weren't able to revisit the subject. But I think one of the ways that I would like to approach this topic, given just those aspirations that we have for our home and our family. And just a caveat here, when I do say in the context of, this decision, even if I say me, I do mean my husband and I, because we have talked about this principle and how we want to raise our kids in past conversations. So he is an equal part to this decision as well, is that I think the way that I would like to approach the conversation with them is to ask my son to say okay, well, why do you think he's wearing a dress? And what do you think about it? Because what I may perceive or think, what he may be questioning or why he noticed it may not be the answer that he gives. He might have a completely different question or conversation on his brain that I want to make sure that I'm addressing what his question is instead of just jumping to a conclusion. The other reason why I really want to have this conversation with him is because he will be going to school in the fall. Now, up to this point, we have homeschooled my cowboys, and that was a very conscious choice as well. But knowing and looking forward to the fact okay, he is going to be in the public school, he is going to get exposed to a lot of other thoughts and beliefs that we haven't talked about or haven't discussed. And when he gets to the public school system, there's going to be a lot more thoughts, right? And I want him to be able to come home and have these conversations where he feels free to express his questions and his concerns without just being shut down and like I was growing up, where it was just nope, this is the answer. This is the way it is. Anyone that doesn't think this way is wrong. And that's it. There's no option to explore and express as a child what you may be thinking or how this may be impacting you, or again, their perception may be completely different than we as adults are thinking of what they may be seeing or how they may be interpreting certain things. But I am really interested to see how you would approach this with your child. Have you had recent conversations? What are your thoughts on this topic? I would love to discuss it further with you in the comments. If you would like to hear some of the reasons why we're putting our kids into public school after homeschooling, at least my 7-year-old, for a couple of years, then I'll link up that episode for you to watch next. But until we hang out again, I hope you create a home your heart loves.